Hey everyone, my name is John O'Neill and I am the stage manager for Little Women at Asheville Community Theater. I am here with the rest of the March family. I'm going to let them introduce themselves and then jump right into the interview.
Hello, my name is Tod Leaven and I will be playing Mr. March.
I'm Jan Robbins and I'm playing Hannah.
I'm Susan Yeatman and I am playing Aunt March.
I'm Samantha Gonzalez-Block and I'm playing the part of Marmee.
So this one is the first part of the question is for Aunt March, and then the rest is for everybody else. Why is Aunt March so angry, and why do Hannah, Marmee, and Father put up with it?
Well, Aunt March seems to be so angry. I don't know how angry she is. I think it's her way of keeping her world in chaos. After all, it is during the Civil War. Also, money is talked about a lot in the show. And for her, in her world, it was a way of managing your status, your status in life. And it was changing and evolving, and it just wasn't as important in the world of the March sisters.
Anybody else? Why did you put up with Aunt March?
Okay, I'll go ahead and talk since she is my aunt, so I guess I'm the one to blame. Well, she's family, which is incredibly important, especially in the March family. Family is significantly important. Also, during these days, not only is it the Civil War, so you have high mortality there, but back in the Victorian era, you had just universal high mortality. Your life expectancy was low, high birth mortality was high. So the fact that she would actually live to be that long makes her even more special, I think.
And I'll speak too. I think she is angry because she's a spinster. She's got nobody but the Marches. And, you know, every family has one. So we just put up with it because there is no other choice.
I think also for Marmee especially, I think Marmee really sees the good in everyone, even beyond that rough exterior. So I think Marmee sees sort of the brokenness and pains of Aunt March, but also is able to see some of that beauty. And I think always has hope that she's gonna sort of break open that exterior, and Aunt March can kind of be compassionate. So Marmee always has hope that that's possible, but I think she really values family and really sees the good in each person.
Marmee, that's a great point, and you're such a sweetheart, because the one thing that Aunt March lacks is a lot of family and companionship, and so we kind of try to bring that to her. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, she's all we have, and we're all she has.
I think she also loves them very deeply, and she just doesn't know how to show it. She didn't grow up in an era where you showed a lot of emotion. That was all kept under check, under control.
And we also know that she has some health problems with rheumatism and arthritis and who knows what else. So she doesn't feel good a lot of the time, so it's understandable.
And the last thing I'll say too, I mean, I think the March family, I think my stage husband and I, we sort of want the best for our daughters, and we want opportunities and experiences. And I think Marmee knows that Aunt March can offer those things, and I think Aunt March wants to in some ways too. So there's also a dependence in this time, financially as well as emotionally. That's there as well.
Those are all really great perspectives on the relationship between the March family being the sisters and the father and Marmee and Hannah with Aunt March. So what can we learn now in our present day and situation from this story?
I think we have learned that family needs to stick together. And in times now, they don't have a choice. They live under one roof. They're together all the time, no matter what. And I think the Marches did that way back then.
the word that comes to mind for me is resilience. I just think this is a family that deals with so many things, from illness to death to war to broken dreams, and they kind of always rise to the occasion. They're always coming back together. They're always never losing hope. And I think there's something really valuable for us to take in about that. I think they also always look beyond themselves. They take care of one another, but they also take care of the Hummels and Aunt March and the community across, and Lori and his grandfather. There's a community beyond them that they also care about as well. And I think that's an important thing for us to remember in these times too.
Yes, I think it also talks about the fact that, life evolves, that women can become independent. Women can become famous writers or doctors or lawyers. A woman will inevitably be in the White House. I have no doubt of it, just like Aunt March would say. So I think it is a story about the acceptance of change.
I think for me, there are probably two main lessons. The first one's a little cynical, but I think the second one is a lesson of hope. I think there is an underlying lesson that just absolute altruistic giving with no sense of self-preservation can have detrimental consequences. But I think it also teaches you that it's that same type of love and giving that ultimately gets you through the times of high tragedy. So I think it's has a positive and kind of a cautionary tale as well.
So if your characters were living in the age of 2020 and this pandemic that's going on, what do you think they would say to the March sisters? Whether they're asking for advice or, you're just trying to cheer them up. What do you think your characters would say to the sisters?
Well, I think as an old lady, because I am an old lady character, I would probably be reminiscing. I would probably be talking about the medical calamities of which I was part of, which would have been chicken pox and measles and hepatitis. And, and all of those things seem so tame to, what's going on today. But each one had their own particular cost. And that with each of these calamities, we're taught different ways to deal with it and learn from it. I think that's what old lady Aunt March would have been doing and saying.
I think Hannah would have baked them all some cookies and the house would smell good and we'd all be nice and close and eating good food.
I think Marmee, being the good transcendentalist that she is, I think would want the girls to continue to keep up with their studies, to continue to dream big. I'm sure Joe would be up writing and Amy would be painting and Marmee would be trying to get them to organize a performance on Zoom, not unlike what we're doing now. And I think she'd also tell them to put on their masks and gloves because we're going to go bring food to our neighbors, or we're going to be making blankets to go bring out to those who need it, who are maybe facing homelessness. And so I think Marmee would have sort of this continued growth and playfulness in the home, and then also an energy to care for others who might be in greater need in this time.
I think that's probably one of the many reasons why Mr. March loved Marmee so much, because Mr. March would also, I think, as a Civil War veteran, would tell his little women that even through the horrors of really brutal combat, it was love for yourself, love for your neighbors, love for your fellow man that's going to get you through. And you absolutely continue with your studies and you keep as much of the daily grind as you can with the utmost compassion and understanding. And at all costs, do not be judgmental to others. In fact, if you have 5 cents, you give 4.5 cents out to your neighbor.
I think the March family would have had some wonderful fights and they'd probably push each other's buttons. We'd probably breaking up some of the squabbles with the girls. But we'd have some great teaching moments, right?
Yeah.
We'd have some beautiful coming together.
So in kind of transitioning from your character to you as an actor, what's been the toughest transition from being on stage in the theater to your living rooms or kitchens or wherever you are for rehearsal and then the future performance?
Say the lack of interaction, the fact that even when I'm here in this Zoom meeting, I can't look at Marmee, who on my screen is here. I can't look at Hannah. I can't look at Auntie. I mean, I have to look at this little circle on top of my computer. And I hate that because, you know, to me, the intimacy of a performance is you are physically interacting with people. You are looking at them in the eye. It's the body language. And I think a lot of that gets lost having to stare here. And it is hard for me to stare here when I want to look there and there.
I agree with him. For me, I found out I learned my lines depending on where I am physically on the set. And so when we're just talking to each other here and I'm like Tod, or like Father March, and I'm staring at a little circle, I don't know if they're on the couch or the porch or where they are. And it's been really challenging for me to keep up with where we are in the rehearsals. It's been a real growing experience, but I will be happy when we're back on stage.
Yes, I agree with everything that you have said. I've had a real hard time, you know, navigating all this. But I have to say that just everything is distracting me. So my concentration level is like, yeah, pretty much everything has been very extremely distractive. And also I miss the ability to sort of, when you're on stage, there's a whole trust factor that's going on between you and the other actor. And if something goes awry, usually the other actor will help you get out of it. But when you're just on a screen here and you go blank, there's this horrible silence.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I feel like there's been a grief around it. I think there's been a letting go of a lot of things, you know, from our set to our costumes to our ability to be together physically. And I'd agree with Tod. I think this is a very intimate show. A lot of Marmee's character is walking through the door and hugging her girls, and then walking out the door and hugging and kissing her girls again. It's a COVID nightmare, and I long for them. I sort of feel like the March family is experiencing what all families across the world are experiencing, just this longing to be together and break out of these Brady Bunch boxes and just cling to each other. And I feel that in rehearsal. I just want to just reach through and be able to just comfort Beth, or, you know, or cheer up Joe. And so there's a loss there, and there's a longing there. So that's been an adjustment. And maybe it's unexpectedly made us stronger as a family, because we've had to cling to each other that much tighter. But it's hard. It's really hard. It's a challenge as actors, for sure.
Yeah, the toughest thing for me when with doing all these interviews and the podcast and whatnot is not watching the person talk to me, which I inevitably do all the time. So my eyes are never on the camera like they should be. But yeah, I think everybody in this cast, you know, you four and all the other 10 people have done just a great job of taking the performances from the stage to the Brady Bunch boxes, as Samantha said. All right, on to our last question, and it's the question I'm asking everybody in the cast, and that is, what is your favorite line of the show? It can be yours, it can be somebody else's, but what is your favorite line?
My favorite line in the show is, "It's the same all over the world."
Mine is Aunt March's line where she says, "Well, I hope everything turns out for the best, but I doubt it." because I think that's when Marmee thinks we finally got through. Aunt March is finally just showing that compassion, and then Aunt March catches herself, and Marmee goes, "Okay, we got work to do."
I think
My favorite. Sorry.
Oh, no.
My favorite,
go on.
My favorite line comes from Jo, because she's so clear-headed and so articulate. But when she says, "Well, we do like young men, but we don't like young men who wonder about who we like."
Mine is, it actually appears twice. It's one of the first lines and one of the last lines, and it's when nothing in our little home seemed wrong and nothing in the world outside seemed right, which I think also really encapsulates this COVID-19 type of atmosphere that we're currently in.
All great lines, all great lessons and parts of the show. Well, thank you all so much for coming and letting us pick your brain a little bit about your role and you as an actor in this time. So wave, and hopefully everybody will come and see the show and enjoy the performance.
Thank you, John.
Yes.
Thank you.